So in order to do substitution, one of your equation has to be solved for either x or y. So if we look at this one, notice how the second equation says x equals y minus 5. So what I'm going to do is substitute that in the first equation for x. So let's rewrite that first equation. So it's 5x plus 2y equals negative 4. And we're going to drop that y minus 5 in that parentheses. So now we have an equation with only one variable, which is y. So let's distribute the 5. So 5y minus 25 plus 2y equals negative 4. Combine your like terms, which would be 5y and 2y, so 7y equals negative 25. Oops, sorry. I'm sorry. 7y minus 25 equals negative 4. And then we're going to add 25 to both sides. So that would be 7y equals 21. And then divide by 7. And I'm sorry, I'm at the bottom of the screen. Let me rewrite that. So we had 7y equals 21. Divide by 7. Y equals 3. And now we need to find x. And to find x, we go back to one of these two equations. And I always like to use, if I have this one that says x equals, then I'm going to use this one because that's set up for x. So x equals y, which we figured out is 3 minus 5. And 3 minus 5 is negative 2. So that is my solution. I have x and I have y. Write that as an ordered pair. X always comes first. And this would be my final answer. So we've now so far covered 2 different ways to solve a system. On Wednesday, we started with graphing. And on Friday, we learned substitution. And today, we're going to learn something called linear combination, which is also called elimination. So I'm going to pause for a second. If you have any questions, feel free to put it in the chat or unmute yourself. I'm going to open up my chat. Oh, I already have it open. So if you have a question or if you need more time to copy this down, can you leave me a message so I know? If not, I'm going to move forward to our first example. Okay. So go ahead and take a few moments in your notes. Copy down the 4 steps for linear combination. So these are the steps for this new process that we're going to cover today. And the key for this step, or the key for this process, is opposite coefficients. I'm going to highlight that. So I'm going to give you a few moments to copy this down, and then we will come back together. If you're watching this as a recording, feel free to pause the video at this time. So the key for elimination is you want to have opposite coefficients. So opposite coefficients are numbers, same number, opposite sign. So for example, 3 and negative 3, 2 and negative 2, 4 and negative 4, 4 and positive 4. So those are opposite coefficients. So when we're looking at this, I'm noticing that we actually already have opposites with our y. So we don't have to multiply because step one would be to multiply. But if we already have opposites, we can skip directly down to step two, which is to add them together. So I like to rewrite because I like my terms to be lined up. So I'm going to rewrite them. All right, so we already have the opposite, so we can add. This is going to cancel because they're opposite. So 1x plus 15x is 16x equals 8 plus 88. So take out your calculators. 8 plus 88 is 96. And then we're going to divide both sides by 16. And 96 divided by 16 is 6. So x equals 6. And now we need to find y. And we can decide which one we want to use. And I think I'm going to use this first one here because that looks pretty basic. It's just x plus a number equals 8. So let's use that one. So it says x plus y equals 8. And I figured out that x was 6. So 6 plus a number equals 8. Subtract the 6. And y equals 2. And we have solved that system. So my solution is 6, 2. So we're going to do 2 more using this method of linear combination. And again, the key for linear combination is opposite coefficients. If you have opposite coefficients, you can do this process. All right, so take a moment and copy down question number 2. So we don't have opposite coefficients, but if we look at our x coefficients, one has a -9 and one has a +18. If I multiply this first equation by 2, 2 times -9 is -18. And then I would have opposite coefficients. So what I want you to do with your calculator is take this equation, this entire equation, and multiply everything by 2. Not just x, but the entire equation is going to be multiplied by 2. So that's going to give me -18x plus 6y equals -30. So I just took that top equation and I multiplied it by 2 because I'm trying to achieve opposite coefficients. Now I don't need to do anything with the second equation I'm just going to rewrite that one. And now we're ready to add these together. So when I add them together, because I multiplied that top one by 2, now these are opposite. We can cancel that out. And that gives us negative 1y equals negative 1. Divide both sides by negative 1. And y equals 1. Now, as far as finding x, there really isn't one equation that looks like it's easier than the other. So it doesn't matter which one we use per se to find x. I think I am going to go with the second one. So the second equation says 18x minus 7y equals 29. So 18x minus 7 times y, which we just figured out is 1. So let's go ahead and solve this equation for x. So now 18x minus 7 equals 29. Now we're going to add the 7. 18x equals 36. Divide by 18. And we get x equals 2. So the solution is 2, 1. So we have one more example to cover today. Now, because for our first example, we didn't have to multiply. And for this one, we had to multiply one equation before we can add. But again, the key is opposite coefficients. You have to have opposites for this method. You have to have opposite coefficients. All right, so I'm going to give you a second to copy down number 4 because we skipped 3. So take a minute, copy this down, and we'll work through this together. So for this example, in order to achieve opposite coefficients, we're going to have to multiply both because 2 is not a factor of 3 and 3 is not a factor of 2. And the same thing here with our 8, with our y's. If I want to get opposites, I could change this to 40 and negative 40. I could do that. Or we could just stick with the x's and make these 6 and negative 6. So what we're going to do is I'm going to multiply this first one by 3. And I could either multiply it by positive 3 or negative 3. Just one of them needs to be multiplied by negative. So if I want to make them the same, because 3 times 2 is 6 and 2 times 3 is 6, but I need one of these to be negative for it to cancel when I add. So I'm going to make this a negative 2. So take a minute, multiply this entire top equation by positive 3 and the entire bottom equation by negative 2. So when I multiply that first one by 3, that gives me 6x plus 30y equals negative 12. So 3 times 2 is 6. 3 times 10 is 30. 3 times negative 4 is negative 12. Now let's take our second equation and multiply it by negative 2. Negative 2 times 3 is negative 6. Negative 2 times 8 is negative 16. And negative 2 times negative 13 is a positive 26. So now when I add these together, the x's cancel. We get 14y equals 14. So 30 minus 16 is 14. And negative 12 plus 26 is also 14. Divide by 14, y equals 1. So now let's find our x. So we got a couple of choices we can use. We can use one of our original equations. We could also use one of the equations we got from multiplying, but I always go back to one of the original equations. We can use the top equation or the bottom equation, whichever one you prefer. I don't think one appears to be easier than the other, so I am going to stick with the first one. So 2x plus 10y, and put a parentheses, equals negative 4. And we figured out that y is 1. So that would be 2x plus 10 equals negative 4. Subtract 10. Two x equals negative 14. divide by 2, and x equals -7. So our solution is -7, +1. Okay, so just a reminder, your Unit 7 homework 3 is due on Wednesday. Now you can actually do that. You can get started on that one. And right now, our test is scheduled for January 25th. If you have any questions, I will be on the line. If not, I will see you in class tomorrow.